Welcome to the Politica UK Infopod. In the discussion surrounding the current conflict involving Iran, one question is beginning to surface more frequently in political commentary. What happens if the Iranian regime itself collapses? Wars often begin with specific military objectives: destroying weapons systems, weakening military capabilities, or forcing political concessions. But history shows that once a conflict begins, it can create pressures that extend far beyond the original goals. In Iran's case, the political system is not centered on a single office or individual. Since the 1979 revolution, the country has been governed through a complex structure combining religious authority with republican institutions. At the top sits the supreme leader, currently Ali Khamenei, supported by powerful institutions such as the Revolutionary Guard, the parliament, and the presidency. That means political change inside Iran would likely unfold through a struggle among multiple power centers, rather than through a simple replacement of one leader by another. Historically, when outside military pressure weakens a government, several different outcomes can follow. In some cases, the existing system adapts. Political elites reorganize themselves and produce new leadership from within the same institutions. That has happened in many countries where leadership changes occurred without completely dismantling the governing system. In other situations, the pressure of war can accelerate internal reform movements. Iran has a long history of political debate and protest movements, particularly among younger generations who have pushed for greater political freedoms and economic change. Those forces might attempt to shape a transition if the government were weakened significantly. But there is also a third possibility, one that policymakers often worry about most: political fragmentation. When strong central authority collapses suddenly, different factions, military groups, political movements, regional interests may compete for control. This can produce instability that lasts for years rather than months. Recent history provides several examples of how unpredictable these transitions can be. In Iraq, the removal of Saddam Hussein's regime opened the way for a new government, but it also triggered a long period of insurgency, sectarian violence, and political restructuring. In Libya, the fall of Muammar Gaddafi did not lead to a stable national leadership. Instead, the country fragmented into competing authorities and armed factions. These examples illustrate a key reality about regime change. Removing an existing leadership structure is often easier than building a stable political system to replace it. Iran's situation would likely be even more complex because of its size, population, and regional influence. The country has more than 80 million people and occupies a central position in Middle Eastern geopolitics. Any political upheaval inside Iran would therefore affect not only domestic politics, but also regional alliances, energy markets, and security relationships across the Middle East. There is also an important psychological factor to consider. External military pressure can sometimes weaken governments, but it can also strengthen nationalist sentiment. When a country comes under attack, people who previously disagreed with their leaders may rally around national institutions in response to the threat. This dynamic has appeared repeatedly in modern conflicts, where foreign intervention unintentionally consolidates internal political unity. For policymakers and analysts looking at the future of Iran, the lesson is clear: political outcomes after war are rarely predictable. Even if military operations reshape the strategic balance, the ultimate direction of Iranian politics will depend largely on the actions of Iranian citizens, political leaders, and institutions themselves. Outside powers can influence the environment through diplomacy, sanctions, or military pressure, but they cannot fully determine how a society of tens of millions of people reorganizes its political future. So when people ask what might happen if the Iranian regime collapses, the honest answer is that several very different paths could unfold: reform, internal transition, or instability. Which of those paths emerges will depend far more on internal Iranian politics than on the decisions of foreign governments. And that uncertainty is one of the reasons why regime change is often considered one of the most unpredictable outcomes of war. This infopod was brought to you by Politica UK.